Hey everyone, it's Deb from Locked Up with History, Twisted History and Glenelg Beach Museum here. I am in Canada Park in Adelaide. I'm just meeting up with Roy. We're actually opposite the dig site for the Beaumont children. So this, for those who don't know, this is a pretty infamous cold case. It's 3 children who disappeared on the 26th of January 1966, and they've never been seen again since. 3 kids, Jane, age 9, Arnna, age 7, and Grant, age 4, disappeared, and they've never been seen. So the site that they're doing another dig on at the moment is a former factory site, the Castellroy, forgive my pronunciation, Castellroy site, which was owned by Henry Phipps, who is one of the main suspects. So we're just here. We're going to have a bit of a look around and see what we can see. Stay tuned.
Now, for me, I think this case hits.
Hey everyone, it's Deb from Locked Up with History, Twisted History and the Glenelg Beach Museum. I'm here with the fabulous Roy Malloy, and what you can see over in the background there is, somewhere over there, is the dig site for the missing Beaumont children. So for those of you unfamiliar with the Beaumont case, this is 3 kids that came to the beach in January 1966 and never made it home again. They were only 9, 7 and 4 at the time. Been at the beach the day before, perfectly fine. On the following day, they just never came home. There's been lots of theories about where they ended up. Everyone has a theory, unfortunately. There's also lots of suspects, but this is one of the suspects. This is a private dig, so this doesn't have police involvement. It's a private enterprise where they're following up on a particular lead that came out of a couple of elderly gentlemen now, but were young boys back in 1966 who said they were asked to dig a hole. And that's a big truck going past. I thought there was something coming up behind us. I was going to get really excited.
When we were across where the dig site is, because it's kind of diagonally through that block, we were talking to some of the journalists, and while we were there, we were only there about 15 minutes total.
Yeah.
And in that time, we had a whole bunch of people come through, mostly old and male, I'm going to call it.
Yes.
They came through and they were very quick to come up to anybody with a camera. So, this is what we appear to be. I don't know if they knew that we're just hacks, like we're not mainstream or anything.
I'm just an old lady sitting in a wheelchair, so they feel sorry for me and talk to me.
They like a machine gun, but they came up to us and they said, they've got it wrong. And they all had their theories. And I think this kind of speaks a lot about perhaps some of the difficulty they've had in finding some victims of some kinds of crimes, is that the evidence that they are presented with, the public evidence, they've got an obligation to look at every bit of public evidence, the police.
Yes.
One of the fellas, he goes, I know where they are, they're down at the beach, they're still there. And he kind of alluded to the idea that the children may have dug a hole and it collapsed on them and they've remained in situ. And I said, how do you know that? And he said, divining rods. And I'm not, don't come at me in the comments. I'm not saying that divining rods don't work. I have no opinion on it. But, it's...
My problem with that is, like I said, the police were all over that beach within 24 hours.
And they were doing sticks in. They had rods.
To me, if it was something as simple as that, the children would have been found, or their belongings would have been found, because they wouldn't necessarily have fallen into the hole.
So human search isn't hit and miss. It's not scattergun. It is so well organised. And there's a science to it. There's a method. They follow the method. It's thorough. And so I think, more needs to be said about the huge amount of effort the police have already gone through. It kind of does remind me of the Lindy Chamberlain case. Yeah. And they scoured Uluru at that time. I mean, scoured it. And it was only the fact that the evidence kept moving because that Japara, do you remember that?
Yes.
It kept moving. It was light and it was being blown around. And for the police not to find it, it's not because they've overlooked it. If they've gone through an area so thorough. And I think what we're left with here is that aspect that there was the topsoil put in, and they did dig here previously. Now, this isn't a police dig. This is a privately funded dig.
It's a private one.
And I think do I say shame on the modern day police? I don't know.
I think it's because they've already dug here twice before and found nothing. So I think that's possibly why they're not terribly interested. You've got to remember, police resources aren't finite, and especially for cases that have been being searched for a long time. This case is 58 years old now.
And it is a cold case, but it is also a stale cold case in that sometimes you look at like the Jack the Ripper cases, right? If all of a sudden they found, and there was that talk recently, they found the Kosminski shawl that's been handled by thousands of people. If they solve that now, what benefit other than curiosity does it? So you can't prosecute.
Yeah, and that's the issue. And this will be a similar sort of thing. It's more about having that answer finally and being able to cross it off.
So one of the finds in my career, right?
Yeah.
I had this fellow reach out to me, and he was talking about a location that Squizzy Taylor and his business partner had in Goodwood Street in Richmond.
Yes.
And it was an old factory, and they used it as a 2-up school. They had tunnels going out of it. And he was part of the demolition crew, right? And he sent photos to me of an axe that they found in between the floorboards and the ceiling on the first floor. So they pulled this thing up, and the axe was broken. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen an axe handle. They are hefty.
Yes.
To snap that is a lot of work. Don't know how you do it. But it was snapped, and there was clearly blood all over it. And I got in touch with the police. I said, look, I've got these photos. Old mate has the axe. And they said, you're talking about what year? I said, 1913. And they said, there's just no point. We'd have to find a victim in the first place.
Yeah, and the thing to remember too at that time frame is there may have been blood on it, but who's to say it was human blood? Because at that point we're still killing our own animals. So.
We don't have DNA samples to victims back then anyway.
Yeah.
So exactly. Look, with this case, I mean, we're looking at
tough one.
People who, I mean, my mum is a contemporary. She was at the same age as those children, and she grew up terrified of us being taken. She lived through that.
And that was the end that changed. It was probably one of the cases that really changed Australian society at that time. Up until now, they were quite happily, like nowadays, we would not think twice about not letting our 9-year-old, 7-year-old and 4-year-old go off on the bus on their own to go to the beach. That would just be a no-brainer. We don't consider them old enough to look after themselves. But in 1966, that was completely normal for them to do. And it was this case, it was the Wanda Beach case and the disappearance of Linda Stillwell in Melbourne in 1968. We have all three of these cases that happened in a very short period of time, that it ended up being reported in overseas newspapers about that this was the decade of lost children in Australia, which is sad.
We're going to be in town for another couple of weeks performing Criminal Outsider for the Adelaide Fringe.
Absolutely.
We'll come back if anything's found. We'll try and get first hand of it. But, this is truly closure for a lot of people. I don't think there's any joy in any of this. I think really it is about
finding answers. It's being able to put it to bed finally.
Yeah, I mean there are still family alive who are cousins, and
exactly.
So the trauma on that family is enormous. So we will come back and we'll see if we can find some more.
Bye for now.